The betrayal in the dark. I was trapped in a nightmare with the one person I thought I could trust. My best friend, Rohan. We were on a camping trip in the woods, just the two of us, or so I thought. The forest was dense, and the darkness seemed to swallow us whole. We had set up our tent near a lake, and the sound of the water lapping against the shore was soothing. But as night fell, Rohan's behavior changed. He became distant. His eyes took on a sinister glint, and his smile twisted into a snarl. I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia, but the feeling of unease only grew. It started with small things, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, and the sound of whispers in the wind. But soon, I realized that Rohan was behind it all. He was manipulating the environment, using his knowledge of the woods to create an atmosphere of fear. And then I saw it. A figure, tall and imposing, standing just beyond the ring of light cast by our campfire. Rohan's eyes locked onto mine, and I saw a malevolent glee in them. He was enjoying my fear. The figure began to move closer, its presence making the air thick with an unseen horror. I tried to scream, but my voice was frozen in my throat. Rohan's laughter echoed through the forest, and I knew I was doomed. The last thing I remembered was Rohan's voice, whispering in my ear, "You'll never leave these woods alive." And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was alone in the tent, the sun shining brightly overhead. But the memory of that night lingered, and I knew that I would never look at friendship the same way again. The question was, had Rohan been a monster all along, or had the darkness in the woods brought out the worst in him? The shadow in the mirror. Rhea had always been fascinated by the antique mirror her grandmother had left her. It was an ornate, old-fashioned thing with carvings of flowers and vines etched into the frame. She hung it in her bedroom, and at first it seemed like any other mirror. But strange things began to happen. Rhea would catch glimpses of someone standing just behind her, only to turn and find no one there. She'd see movements out of the corner of her eye, but when she looked directly, the mirror would reflect only her own image. One night, Rhea woke up to use the bathroom and noticed something odd in the mirror. Her reflection's eyes seemed different. They were darker, and the smile that played on its lips wasn't hers. She spun around, but she was alone in the room. The next day, Rhea started to notice changes in herself. She'd find herself doing things she wouldn't normally do, like rearranging her furniture or wearing clothes she'd never wear. It was as if someone else was influencing her decisions. One evening, as she was getting ready for bed, Rhea saw the shadowy figure clearly in the mirror. It stepped out of the glass and stood behind her, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Rhea tried to scream, but her voice was muffled. The figure began to whisper in her ear, its voice like a cold breeze. "You're mine now," it said. "You'll do as I say." Rhea felt her body move on its own, as if controlled by some unseen force. The next morning, Rhea's friends noticed a change in her. She was distant, her eyes seemed darker, and her smile was off. They asked her what was wrong, but Rhea just shook her head. She knew she was no longer alone in her own skin. The mirror had become a doorway to something sinister, and Rhea was trapped in its grasp. Would she ever be able to break free, or would the shadow in the mirror consume her completely? The Poisoned Gift. Sneha and I had been friends since college. We shared everything, from secrets to dreams. When she moved into my apartment after graduation, I thought it was the start of a new chapter in our lives. But things changed when Sneha got a new job. She started coming home late, smelling of expensive perfume and wearing designer clothes. She'd flaunt her new wealth, and I'd feel happy for her. One day, Sneha gifted me an expensive-looking necklace. I was touched by her generosity. But soon, strange things happened. I'd get mysterious calls, and people would hang up. I'd receive strange messages, hinting at dark secrets. I started to notice Sneha's behavior was suspicious. She'd whisper on the phone, and her eyes would gleam with a sinister light. I discovered her emails, revealing her involvement with a shady organization. The necklace was a tracking device, and Sneha had given it to me to keep tabs on me. I felt betrayed, realizing my so-called friend was using me for her own gain. I knew I had to escape, but Sneha's grip was tightening. One night, I confronted Sneha, and she revealed the truth. She'd been playing me all along, using our friendship to further her own interests. I knew I had to get out. But as I turned to leave, I saw Sneha's smile, a smile that chilled me to the bone. I managed to escape, but the experience left me shaken. I realized that sometimes the people closest to us can be the most dangerous of all. The Dark Companion. Akash and I had been inseparable since childhood. We grew up together, explored the woods behind our houses, and shared our deepest secrets. As we entered our teenage years, Akash's behavior started to change. He became increasingly possessive and controlling. But I brushed it off as a phase. When Akash suggested we take a road trip to a secluded cabin in the mountains, I agreed, despite some reservations. The cabin was nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to whisper in the wind. As we settled in, Akash's behavior grew more erratic. He'd laugh maniacally at odd times, and his eyes would take on a sinister glint. One night, I woke up to find Akash standing over me, his eyes black as coal. He whispered, "I'm not who you think I am." As I watched in horror, his body began to contort and twist, his face elongating into a grotesque mask. I tried to flee, but the doors and windows were sealed, trapping me. Akash's laughter echoed through the cabin, and I realized I was at his mercy. He revealed that he was possessed by a malevolent entity, one that had been awakened by our dark rituals in the woods. As the night wore on, Akash's transformation became more complete. His eyes burned with an otherworldly energy, and his voice was no longer human. I was forced to participate in twisted rituals, and I knew I was doomed. The entity inside Akash fed on my fear, growing stronger with each passing moment. I knew I had to escape, but the cabin seemed to shift and twist, making it impossible to find a way out. In a desperate bid to survive, I used all my strength to break free from the entity's hold. I smashed through the cabin door and ran into the woods, the darkness closing in around me. As I stumbled through the trees, I heard Akash's voice, a twisted, inhuman scream that echoed through the forest. I emerged from the woods, scarred and traumatized. The experience left me questioning everything, including my own perceptions of reality. The friendship I thought I knew was a facade, hiding a monster in plain sight. The memory of that night haunts me still, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters wear the faces of those we trust. The Dark Roommate. I had just moved into a new apartment, and my friend, Arian, offered to stay with me until I got settled. We had been friends since high school, and I thought it would be nice to have some company. At first, everything seemed fine. Arian was helpful, and we'd spend evenings watching movies or playing video games. But as time passed, I started to notice strange things. Doors would be open that I was sure I had closed, and sometimes I'd find my belongings rearranged. Arian would often disappear for hours, claiming he was out with friends or running errands. I started to feel uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside, thinking I was just being paranoid. One night, I woke up to find Arian standing in my room, staring at me with an intense gaze. He claimed he was just checking on me, but the look in his eyes sent shivers down my spine. I began to investigate Arian's activities, snooping around his belongings when he was out. I discovered a hidden room in the apartment, filled with strange artifacts and dark symbols etched into the walls. Arian's laptop had cryptic messages and images of human sacrifices. I realized Arian was involved in something sinister, and I was trapped in his web. He'd been manipulating me all along, using our friendship to gain access to the apartment for his dark rituals. As I confronted Arian, he revealed his true nature. His eyes turned black, and his voice became menacing. He'd been waiting for the perfect moment to initiate a dark ritual, and I was the key. I managed to escape the apartment, but not without scars. The experience left me shaken, and I realized that sometimes the people we trust the most can be our worst nightmares. The darkness followed me, and I knew Arian's malevolent presence still lingered, waiting for its next victim. The Shadow Weaver. My friend Maya was an artist, known for her vibrant paintings and quirky style. We'd been friends since art school, and I admired her creativity. When she invited me to stay with her in her family's old mansion, I agreed, eager to explore the sprawling estate. The mansion had a dark history, with whispers of family tragedies and mysterious disappearances. Maya's family had lived there for generations, and the atmosphere was thick with secrets. As we settled in, I noticed Maya's behavior changing. She'd disappear for hours, claiming she was working on new art pieces. I'd find her in the dead of night, surrounded by candles, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. One night, I stumbled upon an abandoned wing of the mansion, hidden behind a secret door. The walls were adorned with disturbing tapestries depicting scenes of darkness and despair. I felt an eerie presence, as if the tapestries were watching me. Maya's art took on a darker tone, and I realized she was weaving a sinister narrative. Her paintings seemed to come alive, and I'd see movement out of the corner of my eye. The colors were no longer vibrant, but dark and foreboding. As I confronted Maya, she revealed her true intentions. She'd been using me as a muse, drawing energy from my fear and creativity. The tapestries were a manifestation of her dark art, and I was the final piece of her twisted puzzle. I tried to escape, but the mansion seemed to shift and twist, trapping me. Maya's eyes turned into voids, and her voice became a haunting whisper. I was consumed by the darkness, and my screams were drowned out by the whispers of the tapestries. When the police found me, I was catatonic, my mind shattered by the horrors I'd witnessed. Maya was gone, but her art remained, a testament to the darkness that lurked within her. The tapestries were never found, but some say that on certain nights you can still hear the whispers of the Shadow Weaver.